Tens of thousands of protesters are threatening to descend on one of our biggest cities this week as the defence industry prepares to show off the latest deadly weapons of war. Melbourne. It's the city with something for everyone. If you're into defence industry innovations, there's the Defence Expo. Or if you're into protesting defence expos, well, there's the Defence Expo. The 2024 International Land Defence Expo kicks off at the Convention Centre this Wednesday, touting itself as the
largest defence industry event ever held in Australia.
The three-day conference features presentations from the Australian Army and manufacturers showing off the latest in weaponry, everything from tanks to robotic dogs.
Melbourne is a convention city. We have a long track record of hosting major conferences very successfully.
But protesters describe the event as a
one-stop genocide shop.
They spent the weekend marching against the expo, disrupting traffic. One woman arrested after chaining herself to a car. 25,000 protesters are expected to descend on the event, with organisers promising
a mass blockade to disrupt and shut down the opening breakfast of the Land Forces Conference.
But they'll be met by the state's largest police operation since the World Economic Forum in 2000, now granted special powers under the Terrorism Act to request ID and search vehicles in designated areas.
There have been very significant preparations by Victoria Police to ensure that those who come to the city to disrupt, to cause chaos, or to act like an idiot, the police will deal with you.
So, with tensions growing, are we on the verge of a week of violent protests?
And earlier we caught up with Natalie Farah from Disrupt Land Forces, the group behind the protests. Natalie, how far are you willing to take your protest?
This is a really good question. We're entering the 11th month of the latest iteration of the genocide against the people of Palestine in Gaza. We have been protesting every week. In our thousands, we are turning up on the streets of Melbourne, demanding that Australia stops its complicity in the genocide that is occurring. The most horrific war crimes that we are witnessing, Australia is complicit in them. And so when we talk about protesting, we are talking not just about making our voices heard, but we want our government to also take action. And so the reason why we called it Disrupt Land Forces and not Protest Land Forces is because we want it to be uncomfortable for the delegates that are coming from the different weapons companies, delegates coming from the military industrial complex as a whole to make these $1 million contracts.
Natalie, I imagine there's many Australian families sitting at home this Sunday night, perhaps surprised to hear you say that Australia is complicit in everything you've just described. How is Australia complicit?
Australia still doesn't recognise the state of Palestine, and you know this whole propaganda of the Labor government saying that they don't export weapons to Israel is not true, because we know and we have evidence that is publicly available that Australia manufactures significant parts to these weapons that are being then exported to the US and to the UK so that these weapons can be assembled. Primarily, Natalie, we are talking about...
Can you tell me what they are and what those weapons are?
Yeah, so primarily we're talking about the F-35 fighter jet, which we have about 30 companies on this continent that manufacture these parts, different parts of this aeroplane. One of these manufacturing facilities is called Electromold. It is here in Camperfield. It is about half an hour of where we are now. Without the parts being manufactured at Electromold, this plane cannot fly and murder innocent civilians in Gaza.
So what have you got planned then for the next few days? How are you going to make sure your voices are heard, Natalie?
This is not just about rallying and marching in the streets. We have actions that are going to be happening outside multiple weapons manufacturers. We will have vigils. We will have creative actions as well. Our aim is simply to make it clear to those attending Land Forces Expo that they are not welcome here.
Just so everyone watching is clear, though, are you ruling out any violent actions this week?
Yeah, absolutely. We are really clear that we are coming peacefully, just as we have been for the past 11 months. We are communicating with Victoria Police. It is public what we are doing. It is out there. We're inviting people to come and make their voices heard in whatever way they want to. We are coming to this peacefully. If Victoria Police chooses to escalate, then we will respond accordingly. But we've been very clear that we just want to take a stand against this weapons expo.
What does that mean, responding accordingly? I just, obviously, I'm sure we just all want to understand whether there's going to be violence on the streets.
There will not be violence on the street. Let me just explain. When I say we will respond to police violence, I mean in that we will need to react in the way that they decide to, approach us. If a police officer comes up to you and they're spraying us in the eyes, people are going to be, it will be more chaotic as, a mass of people in a space where people are going to be, running away, moving around. And so it's important for us to go into it peacefully. The police is not our enemy here. And so it is not our intention to go into this with wanting to have any altercation with police.
All right, hopefully it stays peaceful. Natalie Farah, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
We also reached out to the organisers of the expo for comment. They declined.
And a bit of an update since we spoke with Natalie. Pro-Palestinian protesters have clashed with police in Melbourne's Burke Street Mall. The altercation began after protesters asked a busker to stop playing music while they chanted. When he refused, a scuffle broke out and a police officer was kicked.